This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast, episode 671, How to Engage Kids in Distance Learning. Welcome to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast, hosted by author, educator, speaker, and mom, the Cool Cat teacher, Vicki Davis. Are your grade books like Swiss cheese right now? In other words, are some of your students missing in action? Today, Mary Howard, a 6th grade science teacher in New York, talks about how to engage kids in distance learning so a sense of community and relationships are developed. Mary's passion is focused on using technology to reach and engage all learners. As distance learning increases, Mary shares education technology strategies and is globally recognized as an authority in this field. Well, let's join Vicki and Mary right now. Enjoy!
Today, I want to recommend my friend Casey Bell's Google Classroom Masterclass. Become a better distance education teacher and get half off this amazing class. I'll tell you how at the end of the show. So we have Mary Howard with us, 6th grade teacher from New York, teaches science. And Mary, you're in New York. You've been teaching distance for a while, teaching in Albany, Georgia. We're two of the hot spots here in the United States with COVID-19. So we're home, for quite some while. But, engaging kids in distance learning, this is a hot topic. How do we do it?
It really is a challenge. I've been at this now for 7 weeks, and it seems to be the question that we're sort of all asking each other. A lot of educators are looking at their gradebooks right now, and to them, it's like Swiss cheese. There's, so many empty spots and so many gaps, and that seems to be the universal question. And when I talk about it, it starts with keeping that classroom community that you had when you had the children face to face. That seems to be the number one thing.
I would agree. We have no Zoom Wednesdays, and we do teacher PD, and we've been doing it for, I don't even know how many weeks, 7, 8 weeks since we got out March 13th and then started back on that Monday. But, we found when the students are talking, when they either present, when we have breakout rooms and they have conversations, that community of, like kids never miss show and tell. They never miss when they're presenting. So how do you bring that into your science classroom?
I love that. And again, the way I structured my teaching during this time period, there was no guidebook. No one said, you're going to do it this way. We all sort of it became the Wild West of teaching out here. And we all sort of had to figure out our own path. And so I decided to go ahead with 4 Google Meets per week. And 2 of them are instructional. We talk about the materials that they've been sent and how to do it, and et cetera. But 2 of them are strictly for fun. It's strictly for building community. And so from the very beginning, kids knew, show up on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mrs. Howard's going to have a game, or we're going to do something fun, or we're going to share. And like you said, that show and tell, that was absolutely where we started. It was like, it's silly, but it was, show me your pet. And oh my goodness, every student went running trying to find their pets. And then for me, that morphed into a series of really amazing games. We played Scattergories, and we played Identify This Cartoon Silhouette, or Can You Identify This Gibberish Phrase? Or we played Emoji Bingo. So it was week after week of just community. And that in turn kept them connected, which really was the keys, keep them connected to school.
So Mary, what do you do with those kids who just show up for community days and don't show up for instructional days?
Well, that's where the persistence comes in. It's the positives and the negatives. On Mondays, my emails go out, and they go out to the families, and they go out to the students, and they say, we're missing a couple of assignments. We need this to happen. And if there's confusion or perhaps maybe some carelessness with the truth on the side of the student, often we'll have individual Google Meets, and we'll sit and we'll talk one-on-one and, where are you confused? What's the trouble that you're having? And the bottom line is I still have Swiss cheese in my gradebook. I can't reach them all. And is that really that much different than in the classroom? Not necessarily, but I think it's just, it's the new normal. It really is the new challenge that we're all facing.
Well, and picking up the phone and making a phone call. There's a time when a phone call is far better than an email, because we know that if somebody sort of likes you already, when they see that email, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt, because we know that, so much of communication is face, voice, and body language, and that's not in an email. It's just your words. So we know if they don't care for you very much, that sending that email is probably going to only make that relationship worse. So, when do you decide when you're going to pick up the phone, or do you?
Well, I got some really wonderful words of wisdom from a colleague of mine who happens to be retiring this year. And she said, pick that phone up for the good things because we're having so many bad things happen these days, so many rough times. She said, pick out 5 students that are doing a great job and make those phone calls first. And I took her advice and I did, and it felt so good. So honestly, when I first picked up the phone, it was for that reason. And I was so glad I did. But then, if you haven't connected with 1 or 2 students in a while and you haven't seen them surface, it's time to call and find out what's going on at home. But our principal, he was very wise. He told us to lead with care and compassion because there are so many families dealing with things that we can't even necessarily imagine. I have some students watching after multiple siblings. They don't have time. And so he recommended we always lead with care. And that definitely has been one of the premises that we followed.
Lead with care. I love that. Our headmaster encouraged us to be gentle and kind and just to understand, there's so many things that are going on that we don't know about, that people aren't talking about. I know for me, as I record this, I actually had the flu last week, but I didn't tell anybody and just kind of worked through it. But you take that coronavirus test and you have to wait 7 days or more to get it back. Those are some really long days and you can be very stressed out and you have this like volcano inside of stress or worry that you're not telling anybody about. And how many people that you and I in particular, since we're in hot spots for this, have that question in the back of their mind, every time they sniff or sneeze, they think, wow, is this me? Is this what I have? So I think that compassion is just so much part of what we have to do. Do you see the emotional stress in your kids?
Yes, they're 11 and they're pretty good at hiding it. I have to be honest. They come for the fun and I sort of want to be that person for them unless they truly do need the ear. And if they do, what I've taken to do with my Google Meets is we'll have the group and then I'll sort of say, excellent class, you guys can go on and go, but I always linger behind. Always. And it works. And I'll usually get 1 or 2 that want to linger behind. They want a safer spot. And that's when it sort of opens the door. It's sort of like, when you're face to face and you allow for that quiet space or that moment for them to get the courage to speak. And that's been a strategy I've been trying with the kids, and it's helped.
Yeah, I know when I teach my artificial intelligence class with my students, it's just an enrichment activity. And I always get there 10 minutes early and then I always hang out after. And there's always those few kids that they want to talk. And I think that's a great strategy.
The hardest time was when we found out our school was closing. I think we were all holding out hope that, it just might come back. And you never would think the kids want to go to school, but they really did. They were really, I was heartbroken. I cried. But I was honest with them about it, and they shared back with me. So it's good to have that dialogue.
And as Tolkien says, and I often quote these days, we can't help the times in which we live, only the way in which we live the times. And this is just a time where we have to make the best of it. We have to encourage. We have to remember those relationships. And as we finish up, what are the things you keep telling your students to help keep them encouraged and on track?
I don't know if I actually have a catchphrase that I've been telling them. Really, when they come into the meetings and we sit face to face in our Google Meets, I make sure that I address every single one of them, whether there's 30 or 40 little faces on my screen. Yet I haven't really come up with that catchphrase. More often than not, as a science teacher, I tell them, go outdoors. Because I'm finding myself sitting in front of this computer screen, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a day. And I don't want them doing the same. So it's usually make sure you get outside today is probably the best advice I can give.
Well, teachers, we need to engage our kids in distance learning. I know we did a teacher PD where we talked about engagement and we split into breakout rooms in Zoom and we discussed lots of ways to engage. We came up with 21 ways to engage kids and then started sharing those ideas, even spirit days or certain events or wear a silly hat to class. Even our very older kids, our juniors and seniors, really have enjoyed these activities. So even if we're learning, just having a reason to get up and get dressed and do things and have fun. Kids go to school to learn, but they also go to school to socialize. And that's part of what we do. And I think Mary has really hit on that today. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
My friend Casey Bell writes the Shake Up Learning blog. Casey is who I turn to when I need to train my teachers on Google Classroom and the Level 1 Google Classroom Teacher Certification Training. Right now, Casey is offering her Google Classroom Masterclass at half off. That's a great deal, especially now. If you're in the middle of distance learning or upping your Google Classroom ability, go to googleclassroomcourse.com and use the coupon code HOMELEARNING to get 50% off and take advantage of that great price. So sign up now for Casey's Google Classroom Masterclass. If you need training for your entire school like I did, check out a G Suite training for schools.com. Tell her Vicki Davis, the Cool Cat Teacher, sent you. Casey rocks, and I think she'll help you become a better distance learning teacher now. Thanks for sponsoring the show, Casey.